So you've just executed a command. Where is that binary and which one is executing? Stick around to find out.
You're watching IT Pro TV.
Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us for more LPIC 1 Linux Administrator. We're going to be talking about locating commands with which. Don, what are some of the goals for the episode?
The main goal of the episode is to help you find out where binaries are stored. You run them all the time, and you probably need to have an idea of where they're at. We're also going to be learning about 3 different commands: the where is, locate, and which commands, and get an idea of when to use one versus another. So that's all kind of on our plate right here in this episode.
So Don, when we, what are some of the tools that we can have when we run commands?
All right, so normally when we think about running commands, we think about bash. Bash is our command line interpreter. We type a command and it goes and it does something with it. Now, some of the things that we type are actual binaries located on the hard drive. Some of the things that we type are actually what are called built-ins that are a function of bash, not an actual command. But we don't really know that. We don't see it. And I'll give you an example here. Let's drop to my terminal real quick. We created some functions earlier. So if I type something like uname-a, whoops, I had to spell it right. How do you spell uname? Uname-a. So there we go. It pulls up what my kernel version is, right? Well, uname is a binary stored somewhere on the hard drive. I don't know where. And so it's going to call that and it's going to run it. But there's other things, like we made a function called sysinfo. And if I type that, it pulls up information about my system. Looks like a command as well, right? Well, I know that that's a function we defined in the episode Customizing Bash, right? So I know that's what it is. But if I didn't know that's what it was, it looks just like any other command, right? And I can figure this stuff out by using the type command. It's not actually part of this episode, but we'll cover it anyway. So I can say like type sysinfo, and I get information. Sysinfo is a function. Or if I say type uname, it tells me uname is hashed /usr/bin/uname. It's a binary, right? So the type command will actually tell me what type of executable I'm dealing with, right? And in some cases, it will even tell me where that executable resides. So it's a useful way to do it. But more often than not, we're going to be using some other tools to be able to find this out. And those are the ones that I mentioned a moment ago: locate, where is, and which. And each one kind of serves a different purpose. It gives you a different way of being able to find out where a binary resides. I'll be honest with you up front, you can actually use all 4 of these utilities: type, locate, where is, which. Each one gives you a way to find it, but there's various pros and cons of each.
So these help us to learn about the commands that we're running. Are they all suitable for the same thing, or is there one maybe preferred over the other?
Yeah, so I say you can use all of them, right? But you'll find that there are some that are better than others. And so let me kind of run through these and I'll give you an example. The type command right there. The type command, I use it when I'm trying to figure out if something actually is a binary or not. So that's the question I'm asking. Like, is this a function? Is this an alias? Is this whatever? It's going to tell me that, right? So that's when I go to the type command. But if I want to actually find the binary, the type command is not what I go to first, right? And the reasoning there is that the type command is limited in a couple of ways that we'll see the which command is very similar to. So it's got some limitations. Another great command that's out there, though, is the locate command. Locate, of all the commands that I show you today, locate is the fastest way to find files across your entire hard drive. You can just type locate followed by a file name, and it'll find it. Not just binaries, it'll find anything, right? Locate is really, really powerful, all right? Now, if it's fast and it's powerful and it'll locate everything, that sounds like the winner for us. But there's a couple of problems with locate. The first problem, it's actually not installed on a lot of systems by default. And so let's find out if I've got it here. So if I want to find uname, and so I might do locate uname. Oh man, it's not installed. Okay, well, you know what? Let me install it real quick. I'll do a sudo apt install locate-y. So we'll get that installed. Super small, installs really fast, and then I'll be up and running. And so now I'm ready to do that fast. Look up, locate uname. It didn't find it. Okay. The reason locate is fast is because it maintains a database of all the files across your hard drive, which is also why it's not installed by default on a lot of systems, because that database needs maintaining. It's got to be updated periodically. And if you have tons of files, it can be a big database. It can consume a bit of hard drive space itself. So they don't install it by default. But if you do install it and you build that database, which you do by typing update db, and actually I need to be sudo on this one. So I'm going to run sudo update db. Now it's going to start building the database for locate. And there's certain things that I don't have permission to, even though I sudoed. So I'll get a few little errors on that one. But otherwise, it goes through and it builds it. Now, depending on your hardware, this may take a little bit of time or it may take a long time. I ran this on my computer at home and it took like a solid 8 minutes to build the database. I have a lot more information on my computer at home than I do on this lab machine. So my database just updated pretty quick. And so now when I go and do that locate uname, wham, there, I start getting responses back. And I get a lot. I get the binary right there. I get those GZ files. Those are the manual pages that are tied to uname. It also found some snaps for uname that are installed. So it shows me a ton of information and it was really, really fast. But I've got to keep that database up to date. If I create a new file right now, I need to check my cron jobs and see the next time that database updates because it might not update until tomorrow morning. And so I won't be able to find that file until tomorrow morning. So that's kind of a limitation. And it's one of the reasons that I actually rarely use the locate command.
Now, what if I needed to do, let's say, a real-time search and I got impatient, I didn't want to wait on locate? What tool would we use?
All right, so instead of locate, we could use the where is command. Where is doesn't maintain a database. What it does is it helps you try and find a file and return that back on your screen. And it does it by not searching the whole hard drive, which would take a lot of time, but just by searching your path. We learned in the Customizing Bash episode that there's a file path that's maintained of where your system searches for commands. And you can see it by doing echo $path, all capitals. And when you run that, it will show you your path. So when I type a command, first thing it's going to look for me is in dot, my local directory. Then it's going to look in /user/local/sbin, then /user/local/bin, and so on and so on and so on. And it's going to look through these folders. So what where is does is where is says, well, let me just look through the path and let me see if I can find it. And so once it finds it, then it returns that information to you. And it goes an extra step and says, if I can find a command, let me see if it's got associated man pages or associated source code that goes along with it and returns that. So if I do a where is and I look for uname, right? It comes back. There's uname right there. It's got a man page, actually got 2 man pages, so it returns that information and I get that back. If I were to do where is vim, vim's a little different because I have more than one binary. There's vim.tiny, regular old vim, it's just called vim, vim.basic, and some other things. /etc/vim is a folder for configuration. /usr/share/vim, /usr/share/man/man1/vim1.gz is the man page. So all of that is being returned very quick with no database. All right. Now, that's the positive side of using where is. The negative side is it doesn't actually tell me which one I run. When I run vim, is it going to run vim.tiny? Or is it going to run vim? Or is it going to run vim.basic? I don't know. And the true answer is many systems will be alias to one or the other. So you don't know. Like from this output, I don't know which one of these I'm going to run. Where is does not have a lot of functionality beyond what I just showed you. In fact, if you look at the command line options for it, they're pretty simple. They're things like if I just want to see the binaries, I could say where is -b vim, and it's just going to show me the binaries. Or I could do -m for just finding the man pages, or -s for just finding the source code. This tells me I don't have the source code for Vim installed. And I don't usually install the source code for anything, so it's not really going to return much. But as you start poking around, if you've installed like the kernel headers package and things like that, then you'll start to find source code alongside these things. And it's a good way to figure out where those reside too. But where is not really my go-to command. It's fast. It doesn't need a database, but it only searches the file path and it doesn't give you a definitive answer.
All right, my observational skills are impeccable here, Don. It looks like that the only one that leaves is the which command. Is that going to show us where what binary is actually running?
Yes, so the which command is very similar to where is. It's going to look at your path, and it's going to go through and it's going to find it. But what it's going to do is it's going to find the very first instance, which coincidentally is the one that Bash is going to run. And so the which command is actually going to show you what happens. If I type vim and press enter, right? I know that that's going to run Vim, but where did it come from? And if I run the which Vim command like that, it's going to run, it's going to look at my path, and it's going to say, okay, when you type Vim, we're going to run /usr/bin/vim. And if I do which vi, I can see that it's calling /usr/bin/vi. And if those were linked, I would see what it would actually run from there. So I can actually figure out what is truly going to run with these. If I do a which uname, it's going to show me where that resides and which one I'm going to be running. So that's a real important part about the which command, is it gives you exactly what you want. Now, you can make the which command behave like where is. If I do a which -a VM, and -a is short for all. Show me all of the hits that you get on Vim. When I run that, see how I get /user/bin/vim and /bin/vim. I don't get vim.tiny and I don't get vim.basic, right? These are ones that actually match that name, and that's what Bash is going to be looking for. Vim.tiny and vim.basic, in order for me to launch one of those, it would need to be set up as one of the aliases of the system or an alternative default editor type setting, right? So where is aware of that, which is not. But I can see that there is more than one instance of Vim on my hard drive, or I think in this case, /bin is symlinked to /usr/bin. We're going to learn more about symlinks in another episode. So that's likely the exact same binary, even though it looks different. So, limitations to all these as far as figuring out exactly what we're going to run, but which is really powerful for doing this.
So which kind of seems like our winner here. Now, would there ever be a scenario, I'm kind of curious, where maybe you wouldn't want to use which?
When it comes to which, it does only search in your file path, okay? And same thing with where is, it only searches in your file path. So if you're a developer and you store copies of these binaries in build directories that aren't in your path, it's not gonna find those. So if you wanna find them, locate can be pretty handy, but only if the database is up to date. So if I just did a build of an application, locate's not going to find it until the database is updated. So I've got to get in the habit of doing the update DB command and so on. And I don't want to just run the update DB command all throughout the day on a production system, because it generates a ton of CPU and a ton of disk IO while it runs. Most people schedule it to run at night or something like that. But there is another option. We're going to have a whole separate episode on the find command. The find command is it's like taking a hammer to the problem, right? I mean, it's a club. It doesn't have a database. It does a full disk scrape for all files across your system or a directory that you specify. And so it's a great way to find things when you just can't trust a database and you need to look everywhere. So the moral of this story, I guess, is that you have a ton of ways to search for binaries, really search for any file under Linux, but you just need to know the pros and cons of each, because some are suitable in some scenarios and others aren't. Locate is a phenomenal command. It's great because it's fast, but you got to keep the database up to date. Where is and which, they're also great. They're fast, but they only search the file path, and that's it. They don't search beyond that, so that's kind of their limitations. The type command is only useful for determining really what the origin of a command is, if it's a function versus a command. So if I'm looking for commands that don't actually exist on the file system, then that's a good one. And then find. Find is kind of the last ditch one. If I just want to know for certain that I'm finding every instance of a binary, I end up going to that find command. So a lot of different options that are out there, and definitely stay tuned to catch our find episode. We'll cover that one.
All right, giving you a means to find those binaries and where they're located. Don, what are some of the key takeaways for this episode?
All right, the main thing we learned is that sometimes it's hard to tell where a binary is located on the hard drive. And so we've got a couple of tools available. We learned about the locate command. We saw how to install it, update its database, and then do a search using locate. It's a really good command for that. We learned about the where is command, and now we can quickly locate all the various instances of a binary in our file path. And lastly, we learned about which we could use to then find the first instance of a binary, the one that Bash is actually going to use, so we know what we're running when we type a command. And just as a bonus, I threw in the type command so we can learn about the origin of a command in case it was a function or something other than a file on our hard drive.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us. We've got a lot more exciting content coming up in the LPIC One Linux Administrator.
Thank you for watching IT Pro TV.